Cool, guys. We're rolling. George, thank you so much for coming. This is
Oh,
fun. We just got done with Veater Ranch School. Huge success once again. It's so fun seeing Enzo and the kids that come back, and
yep.
just how much they grow is incredible. But I want to thank you for coming on. George is me and Dawson both. Every rodeo we go to, it seems like everyone's like, "Hey, what's up with the V on your shirt?" And I always say it's Veater Financial Group. Look up George Veater. You're a great mentor to us and someone we look up to and a friend. So thank you so much for everything you do, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Lefty. I also just love these schools. We do them 3 times a year, couple in the winter and this one in the spring. And I just feel like what we give back to the rodeo community and helping these kids develop and grow is something unique. And these kids tell me they've been to lots of other schools, and this is a whole different animal for them. And that's what we've tried to create.
For sure.
Just these guys as instructors, Dawson, Lefty, are just phenomenal. Not just as examples of great bronc riders, but also of great people, and they take a personal interest in all these kids. And then we've got all these good horses to put them on, depending on what they need,
Right.
in a beautiful setting. It's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
Told these guys I wish that something like this was around when I was wanting to learn how to ride broncs.
Yeah, it's good for Dawson and I too. I feel like going back to the basics, like just realizing how important lifting on your rein. I said it. How many times do you think I said it today, Dawson? 400,000.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lift on
Get
your
back
rein.
and lift on your rein.
Lift on your rein. Don't pull on it. It's just going back to the basics. Sometimes when you get a lot going on, you go to so many different rodeos, it seems like everything starts running together, and you just forget about the simple parts of bronc riding, and then just taking yourself back to when you were starting. Whenever I started, it was tough. So it's fun being a part of the journey, and like you were saying in there, Dawson, the process is the most beautiful thing. Like enjoy every second of it, and it's cool whenever they get off and they've made the pickup man for the first time, and they're just on cloud nine, smiles. So
Yeah, it's small victories.
Small
I
victory.
remember being at that stage, and I remember just when you could only spur them out and just slowing down the video and taking a screenshot of it, and it looks like you're spurring, but you're not even spurring, but something you could post. And I remember thinking that was so cool. And then the first time you do spur, and even if it was a half chop or something, you watch it back 40 times, and it's like, wow, I'm the real deal.
For sure. You get excited to post it on Instagram, even taking the still shots. I remember I used
Yeah.
to do that, post it on Instagram, make everyone think you're a bronc rider.
Yeah, I remember one time my dad, I was at an amateur rodeo, and I got a cool picture. It was like this horse kind of went out 1-2, and I still had my feet held, and this horse was kicking up, and my feet looked really good. And then I got bucked off, and I was like, showed my dad, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy this picture, and he's like, you can't buy a picture of a ride you got bucked off and didn't spur. But it was a really cool picture.
Yeah.
I think also, in my mind, we probably underestimate the impact that we have with these kids, because they look at Dawson, Lefty, they're superstars at the NFR and the major elite events all over the United States, Canada, and elsewhere. These kids look up to these guys so much. I mean, they're the rock stars of what they're interested in. And so the little things like someone makes a good ride, or just, holds their spur out, or does one thing good, and then you go up to them and you give them a hug, or you give them a high five or a bump, or you shake their hand and you compliment them. I know you probably don't think about it in the moment, but they'll remember those things. Those are building blocks for their character and their little self-esteem. And they'll remember that forever. Someone said a long time ago that made sense to me. In life, we remember every really mean thing that's ever been said to us that was really mean, and we remember everything that was really wonderful said to us. So we have that power of language and expression with an authority source. So for you guys to be complimenting these guys and making, them realize the things that they did right, I don't think you realize what impact that has on them. It changed their whole life and the way they look at themselves.
Right.
So the power you have that you exercise is awesome.
That's pretty cool, because I remember looking at Bradley Harder, and he would tell me one compliment, and you're exactly right. I remember it to this day, and after he would tell me that, you feel like the man, walk around with your chest bowed out. He's like, if Bradley Harder thinks I could make it, maybe I can. I remember thinking
Right.
that, but it comes from the bottom of my heart. Like, I am proud of every single one of these kids. In 2 days, you build a connection with them, and just you see them grow so much. So the schools are so great. Thank you for letting us be a part of it, and we're very blessed with it.
It's funny, these things all just have taken on a life of their own. We all kind of just made up this stuff together,
We
right?
did.
It's not like we sat down with a business plan. We're going to do this, this, and this, and this. We're like, we had, some horses accumulated, say, well, let's put on a school in conjunction with one of our events. And we did. And it was super successful. And then we've tried to tweak it, make it better. And it's become a real thing. These schools have become
Yeah.
something that people are aware of all over the rodeo world
Yep.
in different countries. And we've had kids come from England and Brazil and Mexico
Yep.
and Australia. Of course,
Canada.
all in Canada, of course, French Canada,
Yeah.
all over the country. And just because of the exposure they see online, and they watch you guys and idolize you and have a chance to spend this time. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own in my mind and become very special.
For sure.
Yeah, I
Well,
remember the first few schools. It was like I think I was more nervous than the kids. Me
For
and Lefty
sure.
were like on the drive in there. We're like getting pumped up. We're like, oh, hopefully we don't screw it up. And like, it's funny how many things we've learned throughout the schools though, making them more efficient, not wasting as much time on certain
Yeah.
details, and really getting down to the meat of it. And I think they get better each and every time. The kids seem to be learning more and more, and we've got such a great group of horses now. And
Yeah.
we do.
I think that's what's really special about this school is, like you were talking about earlier, the compliments. But I like me and Lefty have talked about this before as well, is making it a comfortable environment to learn in. So like. When you're getting yelled at and you don't know what horse you're getting on and this and that's going on, it's hard to focus on the fact that you're learning, especially when there's, some of these schools, they're the top guys. These kids are nervous to be around anyways. And when it's a nervous environment, that you need to be able to relax, have a good laugh. We keep things pretty light.
We'll keep it
Yep.
light.
And then, take your time. This is about you. And then you get to focus on your bronc riding, and you're comfortable, and you're in an environment that, I've been to a lot of schools, and that knock on wood, but we don't have very many wrecks.
Right.
It's great pickup and great horses, and that gives you all the confidence in the world to learn too.
For sure. For sure. And the future of bronc riding's looking good. I'm starting to get
Yeah. It
nervous
is.
about it. All these young kids are hungry and
Yeah.
crave it.
The good thing is you keep getting better. So it's evolution for everybody. So
Yeah.
you're way down the curve on that.
Appreciate that. Well, we all know that you've done great in business, George, but I want to hear a little bit about your rodeo story. What drove you to the sport of bronc riding? Because you were very passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
And I want to know why.
Sure, thanks, Lefty. Well, I grew up on a cattle ranch, and so rodeo is a part of that culture, right? It's kind of like our sport if you grow up in ag. And so my dad had very little experience. He went to one college rodeo. It's interesting. He was on the very first rodeo team at Fresno State in 1950, and then he never went on with it from there. But he won the bull riding, and so I've got a buckle from 1950 that is the only one he ever won. He wore it all the time till he died at 86. And so anyway, it was something as a kid, gosh, if I could get good at that sport, that would probably be something that my dad would be proud of. We all want our dads to be proud of us, even though he didn't have very big vision for, what could be done in the sport of rodeo. And then I launched off into business when I was in college, and I tried to put rodeo down. There's something about it. You can try to explain it, but it's more than just the act of the sport that we fall in love with. It's the culture, it's the people, it's the smells, the sounds, the connection with the animals, the interaction with spectators. I don't know. There's just so many elements that make rodeo such an incredible sport. Well, I fell in love with that at an early age, just in junior rodeos, and then left it for 10 years and didn't rodeo, and just built my business, stabilized myself financially, and could see my way forward there. And then it's kind of like a reward that I'd got into a certain financial place, I decided I'd go back and rodeo again. And so I just got practice wherever I could. I had no organized practice way. You know, there's some horse trainers let me get on their nasty horses. And my dad bought two Mustangs. Don't think he bought them. I think someone gave them to him. But they were a train wreck, right? They just run through the fences and try to kill you. And we didn't have a strip shoot. We had a little wooden, buck shoot, and we didn't have pickup men, and we'd never plowed the arena. It was hard as this concrete, I mean, it was like, I look back now, what a dangerous setting. I get on some rank stuff and just like, how did I survive that? But I just had it just burned deep in my soul. That's what that's one of the things important to me. So anyway, I went back. I was almost 30 years old when I started really rodeoing again. And then I had injuries. I had right away, one of my knees blew out, then the other one blew out, had ACL reconstructions, and just kind of had a slow start trying to get rolling and building my business and everything. And then in the early 2000s, like 99 through 2003 or 4, I stayed healthy, and I had my group to travel with Joe Willoughby, which you guys know very well, and Justin Arnold, who ended up going to the finals 3 times, and then a couple of bareback riders, Jake King and Barry Jones. We had our little group, and we practiced being positive, like super positive. Joe and I practiced every week in between, and we could not wait to get in the car, and it was just the most awesome part of my life. Even though I was progressing financially and accomplishing those goals, my experience in rodeo was what I lived for. So, and I'd try to put it down. I'd rodeo, accomplish a goal, not rodeo for a couple of years, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd go back and accomplish another goal, and that's the way my career kind of went like that, Lefty. So now at this stage, to be able to align myself with you two, and then to really give back to the sport and to build something together that elevates these kids and the sport, I always feel like the lucky guy in the room. Got to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Why do you think you kept getting Drew back to rodeo? You think it was the people, or chasing, getting on the adrenaline, or what do you think it was?
That's definitely a part of it, is the adrenaline of what we do, because I'm like probably everybody in this business. I'm a bit of a adrenaline junkie, and I love that feeling of doing something you're scared of doing and then getting good at that and conquering that, or aspects of that was appealing to me. But I don't know. I think everything about the culture, you're my type of people. We understand each other. We think the same type of way. We're all honorable. I think it served me in business to be a cowboy. Everybody knows I'm a cowboy. Had clients that follow me around, watch me ride. And I think that there is this great American West cowboy ideal that America does honestly. I know that sounds very commercial, but America needs more of it. I mean, when we tell each other something, it's a deal. We don't write contracts. We honor our word. We're brave. Things get scary, and we still nod our head, right? We all love to work hard. It's not easy. We see like Lefty and Dawson at the finals, and they go to like whatever 100, depending on the year. Up to 125 rodeos. They can have gotten to. I mean, and like burning it. Driving all night, catching flights back and forth. I mean, it takes a huge work ethic to become excellent at this sport. So I think all of that, the honor in it, the bravery in it, the work ethic in it, I'm just in love with all of that. So I'll never not be a cowboy.
That's what we love about you, George. That's awesome. What have you seen in rodeo and business that are very, obviously the work ethic, the drive, but I'm sure you could relate a lot of it to rodeo. What's a couple things that stand out?
Well, thanks for asking that question, because I think there are some parallels. It's like there's a system of how to win as a bronc rider, and there's a system of how to win in business. There's processes and protocols. So like, it's not 100 things, you learn to lift, right? You learn to stay back, and you learn to get a hold of horses and set your feet, and you learn to, get good spur outs. There's, I don't know, 5 or 6 fundamental things, and you get good at that, and you can become a superstar at rodeo. Business is no different. There's, you create an experience for your client that's a higher level value-wise than your competition. You create specific protocols that you practice over and over and over and over again to keep elevating yourself in your business based on that process and those same work ethic tools. So it's very relatable. I think what helped me to have the success I had with my rodeo goals, the exact same thing that helped me to win in business. And I told Lefty and Dawson here, we don't just work together in these things, but we're also good friends and we understand each other. And I see us creating and building things together when you guys were at the tail end of your rodeo careers. Okay, what can we do now? With the amount of recognition you have and things you've learned and the presence, especially now with social media and the followings, that we develop. Okay, how do we leverage that? How do we go from here and build a new dream and then accomplish that?
Yeah.
I see you being my life partners in that process.
Appreciate that, George. That means the world. And that's one thing I've learned a lot in the last couple months is I don't always just want to be remembered as in the arena. I want to be remembered for doing something outside of the arena that I built for myself from the ground up, just like you have. And we're brand new into it, but it's been fun. I've learned a lot, and I have a lot to learn. But I really idolize what you've done with Veater Financial Group and just the community you've built. I see your clients show up at the Buckouts, and it's like your family with everybody, and very personable. And that's something I really look up to.
Well, you've got that in your back pocket, and so does Dawson.
Yeah, so does Dawson.
And there's something about being, I don't know, as a human family, we appreciate each other, and we have genuine interest in each other's success. I know that the greatest way to elevate our feeling about ourselves and our mood is to go elevate somebody else. It's reciprocal. You automatically elevate yourself when you're trying to elevate other people. So I think we're all on that same page.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
that's why we enjoy what we're doing together.
Have you been writing your goals down your whole life, or is that something you started?
Started in my 20s.
Okay.
My very first business leader, I was in college. He told me to read Think and Grow Rich, which had been published in 1937. And at the time, in the chapter on desire, on page 32, had the process of setting goals. Decide exactly what you want, the price you're willing to pay, because there isn't anything that's free, right? There's a price to pay. Create a plan, write the plan down, rehearse the plan twice a day. So, and it's a real simple process, but I've done that, and I have paper in my pocket all the time that represent my goals. And I have affirmations, just repeating what it is that I want to become in present tense, right? So I become that ahead of time. It's like telling the truth in advance.
Right.
If you want to make $1 million and you tell yourself every day that you make $1 million, pretty soon it's very believable that you're making $1 million.
Right.
You were prepared to do that. It wasn't some foreign concept. You've been telling yourself for a long time. And that's the way it's gone, just one level at a time for me in success. And now you guys know some exciting things are happening, but I've been blessed to be able to build a $1 billion business in personal wealth management business. I've surrounded myself with a phenomenal team that I've accumulated over the years. We serve 1,400 families in 35 states. And that all started with just one idea and a mission. I truly am driven to help people with their money. And I know the penalty for making big mistakes with money and estate planning and taxes. So I feel I think we have to think in order to be really excited and keep enthusiasm for a limitless amount of time about something that's our goal. We have to have it feel bigger than ourselves. Like we need to do what we're doing. Like it's important for us to do what we're doing. And we're not just making widgets. We're like changing people's lives. We're saving people's, in my case, saving people's retirements, building their futures, preserving, growing their wealth in a responsible way, making sure that they're tax-wise, making sure their estate plan works, when something happens in their family. So I carry that mandate around with me. Like I'm compelled to do that for people. And any business plan that we have, it'll be like that. We feel like we are going to enrich the people that we engage with through what we've decided to do in business. And then that's bigger than you just making some money.
Right. That's
yeah,
awesome.
a lot of responsibility on that.
A lot of responsibility.
There is, and so I tell people, when there's some weird stuff happening right now, right, with the tariffs and our political environments, and there's always some weird stuff happening.
Right.
But this year was one of those. Market went down the first quarter. A lot of people concerned, especially depending on what side of politics you land on personally, right? So you can imagine, I've had lots and lots and lots of conversations with clients, and I reinforce the same principles, and I give my perspective, because the news tends to be hyper negative. And in life, it comes a lot down to the voices you choose to listen to, right? I mean, all of us could listen to negative people that are authorities, air quotes, in their fields. And we could think that the world's going to hell in a handbasket all the time. Like every generation has thought that their world was worse than the last generation, because there's people giving you those negative messages. But that's the opposite of the truth. The world just keeps evolving. And I study history constantly so I can show my clients, if they give me a negative comment, that's not the case. That's not the case. Let me explain what's really happened in moments like this. And I'll tell them, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but I'll tell them, look, a recession is 2 quarters of negative growth, right, in our U.S. economy. Said since the Civil War, we have had 35 recessions, and we've recovered 35 times. You don't need ice water in your veins to believe in that pattern. Every time something goes down, it comes back up and goes higher, right?
Right.
So when they're saying, oh, it's never been this bad, that's not the truth. That's a negative message they're choosing to believe. The old saying about fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. I tell people that's what it is. And the news sells you that stuff because fear is the most compelling emotion that we experience. As a human, just the way we're wired, we will do things to avoid something that scares us more than we'll do things to embrace opportunity.
Very true.
Which steals your potential as a bronc rider, right?
Oh yeah.
And it steals your potential as a business person, and it can cripple investors, right? They'll make bad decisions on negative emotional thoughts that just aren't the truth. So you can tell I get into it, and I get very, very passionate about it. But I'll tell people, okay, when we hear that term bear market, everybody's heard bear market, bull market, right? Bull markets are markets going up, bear markets are markets going down. Well, a bear market, technically defined, is a 20% pullback from the high when stocks go down 20%, usually talking about the S&P or the Dow, the general market. I tell people, okay, since World War II, we've had 11 bear markets, and we've recovered, you've guessed it, 11 times, right? So history tells us every time there's a moment that's scary, that's an opportunity to seize. It's not a reason to run from. It's an opportunity to run towards. And so I change the mindset of people every day. That's what I do. I'm kind of like a psychologist. I'm changing the mindset. We're looking at this wrong if you're scared and freaked out right now. And so even though that's not exactly what Lefty and Dawson do for a living, that principle is exactly what they live. They do big, scary things. Most people see what they do for a living and they think, are you crazy?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Get on those big, scary animals that weigh 1,000, 1,400 pounds, right? And that want to put a hole in you,
Every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they overcome their fear. They don't listen to that negative stuff. They keep in a positive environment. They rehearse the specific set of principles that make them successful over and over and over again. They don't lose enthusiasm for doing those 5 or 6 things better all the time. And they become greats. So I know that's a lot of words. It's probably a long answer to a short question, but we have that in common.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think we understand each other.
For sure.
We do.
For sure. And there's how many people I'm sure in business you've seen, but also in rodeo that completely have not even come close to maxing out their potential and have crashed and burned over it.
You see it all the time.
Amazing bronc riders, bull riders, bareback riders that they can't stop making excuses, and it's like a great example for me is, and I've been super blessed to be able to travel with Zeke Thurston.
Yep.
For since basically my rookie year, but the things I learned from him, he hasn't told me. I've picked up along the way, and if you look at Zeke, he's probably in our generation, obviously the best bronc rider that's in our generation, and he rides completely different than he did when I first started traveling with him, and he works on things. Why would you change something after you've won 2 world titles? He wants to win 8,
To get better.
He's always constantly working on something. And like, to me, I kind of got to a level for a long time. I fell off a lot, but I was kind of 90 or nothing. But it was like, for a minute there, I kind of thought that was going to be me my whole career. And I took a step back and looked at it like, Dawson, you've rode some of the best horses there is. Why can't you ride them more consistently? And I had to kind of rewire my brain into thinking, you got to tell yourself that 50%. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I made the first NFR. I think I had a 46% riding.
You
I
did.
thought it was kind of funny.
That's
and then,
amazing.
You did,
But
yeah.
then after that, it's like, well, is that where you want to be? So I had to change a lot of things, the way I lifted, the way I set my stirrups up, and it took a lot of time. But if you see the world champ who's making moves every single year, he didn't win his first world title and said, I'm going to ride like this every time, because he probably wouldn't have won 4 world titles if he did that. He maybe got another one, but he's constantly trying to be better right now. He's changing things right now, and he's a little back in the standings, and I laugh. I told my wife last night, I said, watch, Zeke will have 2 weekends, and then he'll be third.
Yeah, he's got a spot in the
First.
top 5
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, he's incredible. So,
What
but
are-
a lot of other people too,
Yeah.
that are constantly working on things.
Yeah. What are a couple things that have changed from your rookie year, Dawson, to right now that you've changed up throughout your career that stopped working at a time, or you just wanted to change?
A lot of things I've changed. Like, my stirrups are longer now. I think I stay a little more square, stuff like that. But like we said in these schools, it's 10% physical, 90% mental, and I truly believe that that my consistency and better rides have come from believing in myself and thinking about it. Honestly, I'm huge about just replaying things in my mind until they work out, and envisioning myself riding the way I want to, and before long it starts to happen. I mean, you see, I don't ride the bucking machine as much as I should, and I make changes in my bronc riding mentally,
Right.
it works for me. It's having confidence. I remember my rookie year, I fell off, and I made almost every short round of every big rodeo that year, and I fell off in almost every short round.
Yeah.
And it was 100%. By the end of the year, I stayed on in a few of them, but by the end of the year, I think I had told myself in my head, like, you fall off in short rounds, and I was ready for it. And that's such a bad way of thinking.
Right.
Now I more or less think, there's nothing that can throw me off, and what can we learn from the ones that do?
Right. George, what's something that's changed from when you first started writing your goals down? From when you were 20 years old to what are you now? You're
62.
62. So what's something that's changed in did you ever think you would build $1 billion company?
No, I think it's probably similar than everybody that's been blessed with success to some degree. I think you get to different levels, then you see yourself differently, and that's a launching point to a new level, right? So I certainly never saw myself making the money that I make now or having the opportunities that I make now. I think about it sometimes because I just have always been the person that's, I won't say impulsive, but I make a decision very fast and I move right into it full speed. We bought this ranch last year, it's a 4,000 acre ranch. And And it's kind of an afterthought deal, like a year before that, I even thought about buying another ranch. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that that would be a good idea to expand that business. And Joe and I had talked about it, my partner in the cattle business, my previous traveling partner, what that would do for both of our lives to scale that bigger. And we went down and bought a 4,000 acre ranch, just kind of like you'd go buy a shirt, it's kind of like, it was a very quick move. And all my decisions have kind of been like that because I'm prepared mentally to go to those next levels, right? I don't have to do a lot of adjustment.
Right.
I did the same thing when I bought this ranch, and when I saw the business model that I wanted to build, I knew I could build that model, and I just dove into it and loaded up my credit cards and just made it happen.
Believed in yourself.
And then every success builds on, they always say, success breeds success, and it certainly has been the case. And you just keep scaling it in different ways. And, my health goals, I'm really big on being healthy because I'm 62 and I'm probably maybe in better shape than a lot of 62-year-old guys, And so because I always felt like I had so much to do in my life that I had to take care of my health, and I had to be physically prepared to do these big things in later chapters. That was always part of my thinking process. I remember I read George Patton, General Patton's biography. And, when World War II started, he was 60 years old. And he says in his book that he spent his whole life waiting to lead a great army in a desperate battle. Now, if you can start out at West Point when you're 19 and keep that enthusiasm for those 40 years until your opportunity shows up and you're ready, to me, that's what it's about.
Right.
Anybody can be excited for a day or two or a month or two about something, but a winner is excited for however long it takes to get the job done.
Right.
It doesn't matter how long it takes.
That's awesome.
So I've always felt that way about my life, like each chapter was going to present greater opportunities.
And they have.
And it has. It's totally been that case. It's been progressive and evolutionary. And you guys are just one more step in my association with you and what we can build together, what we already have and what we will continue to build together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've, I know me and Lefty talk a lot, but we have learned so much from you. And just, surrounding yourself by good people and positive people like yourself, it's changed my career in more ways than you know it. Like,
Likewise.
To imagine, like, look where we're sitting right now.
I know. It's beautiful.
To build something like that from the ground up, it's truly inspiring, and to even see the mountains we've moved here on the Veater Ranch, just in the rodeo world, like the thought of having a bronc match, and then next thing you know, it's the biggest bronc match, the biggest approved bronc match that California's ever seen. It pays enough to change world titles, and that's
what it did.
It's been quite a ride.
Yeah. One more thing, George. So if you could go back and tell yourself something at 20 years old, what would you tell yourself?
Gosh, I think about that, Lefty. It's interesting you say that because I think we all do sometimes. If we go back and change this or change that, we think about what would our repeats be and how we would revise our life if we did have a do-over. But because my failures were so instructional for me, right? I wouldn't want to go back again. So I sincerely don't have those thoughts. Like, I would not, if I could go back, sure, maybe I could build it bigger, better, with more understanding that I accumulated, but I wouldn't want to relearn those lessons that were excruciating at the time. There's times where everything goes wrong in business, and, whatever the bigger your goal, the bigger your problems. That's the truth of it,
Right.
It's not like the problems go away. It's your ability to manage them that gets enhanced, and you just have bigger problems that you can handle better. That's how life works. It's never a straight line. It's something goes wrong, and you figure it out, and you fix it and propel yourself to the next level. And something goes wrong, and you figure it out and fix it and propel yourself to the next level. So I'm just feel blessed the way things have worked out, but I wouldn't go back and really change anything. The lessons I needed to learn, I've learned. have more lessons to learn that I will learn. The relationships I have, I wouldn't want to go back in time and risk not having those relationships. Or have the youthful feeling like I could do anything. So I took, like, in hindsight, some serious big risks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful I did, But looking back, you're like, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
Man?
Yeah.
That was like,
But
that could have been
yeah.
horrible, but I did. So I'm sure you feel that way about where you are in your careers. I mean, here you're both world title contenders. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows you in the bronc riding, not just in the bronc riding world, in the world of extreme sports. You guys are rock stars. And so, your hard years where things were struggle bus, probably looking back, were the most instructional moments, right?
And they weren't that bad.
And where you developed the most, right?
Oh, for sure.
Superman only becomes Superman when stuff goes bad.
Right.
He's Clark Kent the rest of the time. Right? We can't find our greater self without horrific, difficult moments. So even though we don't invite those, they're necessary for us to become what we have potential to become. So that's why I wouldn't, I went through some really scary stuff. I wouldn't want to repeat, because I made it through and I learned and I grew, But those are the moments I'm proudest of. And I know I've been your friends long enough to see you go through some moments that were not easy. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, the difference between Dawson and Lefty in the rodeo world, as far as my involvement in the rodeo world, is the way that they think and the way they manage themselves when things go bad. They figure it out and charge, mm-hmm. Like Dawson, I mean, we just talked about him, he's having kind of heck a couple years ago at the NFR, and then he draws the rankest horse in the world and spurs him down, Killer Bee. I mean, but that tells you more than just someone, he's on a roll and so he can ride anything right now because he's on a roll. It's not like that.
No, it's not.
You're doubting yourself, and I mean, I've seen him do that more than once, and both of you do that more than once. So it's the character that you've developed in those, what they call the lonely moments of the soul, right? Where you're doubting yourself and you're not sure and you have something hard to absorb. It's those moments you find out what you're made of. And I've seen you guys go through some of those moments. And so that's where I have, the most respect for you. Not just because you're raw talent and you're great like you are. It's because of the way you handle yourselves when it's not so easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a fun place to be when you're in the dumps like that, but there's no better feeling than digging yourself out. That's for sure. It's if it was always good, I don't think it would be that rewarding. I hate going through struggles. I hate being through a rut. I hate changing my stirrup leathers. I get into a little bit of a rut, but you got to admit there's no better feeling than when you're 5 horses in and you've been 89, 5 times in 2 weeks, and you're like, holy, I'm out of her.
Yeah.
It's time to charge.
Yeah. George, you just said a quote in there about, this will be our last thing, about excuses. Mm-hmm. Can you go over that one more time for us?
I will. I think it's just mission critical for all of us, no matter what our life path is, where we're trying to go and where we are, that we're super honest with ourselves. And honesty is where kind of success starts, when we stop making up stories for why we don't have what we want. When we can look in ourselves in the mirror and say, your spur out's not good enough right now, or whatever it is. Like for me, you're not having those conversations that are uncomfortable, that are necessary to propel your business to the next level, whatever it is. So I memorized this. I saw it. I told these guys I saw it on somebody's wall. It was a poster, and I wrote it down. I don't know who the author is, but he said, any excuse for performance or any excuse for failure, no matter how valid, softens the character. It works as a sedative against one's own conscience. When a man makes an excuse, he attempts to convince both himself and others that unsatisfactory is somehow acceptable. He is perhaps unconsciously diverting attention from performance, the only thing that counts, to his own want for sympathy. The user is dishonest with himself as well as with others.
I love that.
And you guys don't make excuses. I'm just going to give you one more quote because it's hit me in the heart right now. But as far as talking about overcoming adversity, think we just don't talk about that topic enough because we don't know what people's struggles are. We see them on the outside. We see things, the way people operate, but we don't know the battles that we don't see that are going on, whatever, in their personal lives or their doubts or the chemistry in their body or whatever. You know, people fight battles that we're unaware of all the time. And it's respecting people and then helping people frame their failures in a more constructive way. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, that book I referenced before, he said, "We who sit on the sidelines of life see the overwhelmingly large numbers of people go down in defeat, never to rise again. But we see the few who take defeat as an urge to greater effort, and to them go all of life's spoils."
Wow.
So to me, that's what we need to discuss a lot. How do we handle those difficult moments, you know? And you guys have been great examples to me.
Well, it's an honor and a blessing. We're up here at beautiful Veater Ranch, hanging out with not only a mentor of ours, but somebody that we really look up to, and we've created something great. And come check out the Veater Ranch School. Thank you so much, George. I really look up to you.
You're welcome. Love you guys.
Love you guys. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Dawson,
Thanks, Dawson.
you're
Thanks
a
so much.
badass.
You are.
And both of you guys.
You guys are both
I'm
badasses.
sitting here with greatness. It's awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll just keep this momentum going, and
Yes, we will.
we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you, Rob. George,
Thanks, guys.
you're the man, dude.